What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to go over some of the top decks that I'm going to be preparing for at the NAWCQ coming up just next weekend. So instead of going through a whole tier list of going through all the decks, I'm just going to give it to you straight. So I'll save you clicking to the end. And these are really the only decks on my mind. Realistically, only the top two tiers are on my mind, but there's also like other decks that I want to talk about and why I think they might not be up at the top two tiers, and then kind of just go through my thoughts on each of these decks. So we're going to start off at the top with what I think are the four best decks, and I think there's kind of consensus, honestly, what the four best decks are, and those are Mitsurugi, Vanquish Soul, Maliss, and then like Ryzeal's up here. I know like Ryzeal is usually with Mitsurugi these days, so it's debatably even like a separate item on the list, but I'm just going to put Ryzeal up at the top because stuff that plays Ryzeal is generally pretty good. And really, when it comes down to picking what the best decks are for the tournament, you're going to have to make sure your deck can prepare for each of these. And that's really where I'm coming from when I'm building my main deck of non-engine, my side deck non-engine, is really these are the decks that I'm going to have in mind. I'm going to have exact siding patterns nailed down for, and I'm going to have outs to the main problems that these decks pose. So obviously Mitsurugi is probably the most popular deck going into the tournament because number one, it's cheap. Number two, it's fairly easy to learn. And number three, it's been out for a while, so a lot of people probably already have it. As opposed to the next best deck, which I think is Vanquish Soul, which is a little bit harder to pick up, actually, because we have to get Halisu, which just came out in Duelist Advance. And then it's kind of a complex deck to learn and try to master. So there might be a lot of Vanquish Soul players there that are not really, experts, and we can't really rely on doing too well just based on number of players. So these are the two best decks in my opinion. And then number three, I have Maliss here. You can argue like any one of these decks are, the real best deck, but I think it's really a three-deck tournament going into the NAWCQ. I think Maliss is actually a little bit of a sleeper pick because it's been the focus of everyone for the last like 6 months. And then all of a sudden, it kind of fell off. Mitsurugi came up and it really dominated. Now Vanquish Soul comes up and is really threatening to dominate. And people are kind of forgetting about Maliss. They're getting rid of the Meows out of their side deck. They're getting rid of the Chaos Hunters out of their side deck. And I think that Maliss can have a really strong showing, particularly because of a lot of the non-engine that Maliss can play. I'm talking about Dominus Impulse. I'm talking about Mistaken Arrest. Like, it's the non-engine, I think, that's going to win this tournament, and who can play the best, types of non-engine. Oh, and then Bestials, of course, are also played by Maliss. So really, Maliss is just playing all of the best non-engine options in its deck, and I think that's why it kind of has an edge potentially over these other decks. And then we have Ryzeal, of course. Detonator is always going to be part of the format. As long as Detonator is legally playable, Detonator, you're going to have an answer to Detonator in your deck, and it really does pose problems for a lot of decks, and it's nothing to forget about. I know we've gotten used to Detonator over the last 6 to 8 months, but hey, Detonator is an issue, and we have to know about it, okay? So when it comes to dealing with these top four decks, you have to be able to deal with a board wipe in Murakumo. You have to know how to deal with a Vanquish Soul board. If you're going into this tournament with Mitsurugi and you think you're just going to walk all over Vanquish Soul, think again, because Vanquish Soul has actually a really good Mitsurugi matchup because it can protect all of its monsters from destruction very easily. The trap card will prevent you from board wiping with Murakumo. The field spell will prevent you from board wiping with Murakumo. A few of the Vanquish Soul monsters have built-in protection, so it's really hard to actually deal with a whole board full of monsters where Mitsurugi usually shines, and that's why you're going to have to think of some options, think of some ways to deal with the Vanquish Soul board. Now, Vanquish Soul going second, it's a little suspicious. You do have to play some low-impact non-engine, so if you just get run through by a whole bunch of, engine, like if you're playing Mitsurugi, Ryzeal, Fiendsmith, and you can just load up on engine and blast through the Vanquish Soul hand traps, then you're probably in a pretty good spot going first. But, yeah, we're going to see what Vanquish Soul is able to accomplish in its first major tournament. And then we have the Ryzeal deck. We also have like the pure Ryzeal coming back potentially with the Onomot cards, with Onomatopera. We have the Gagaga, what's it called? Gagaga Magician? No, what is it? The new one. Gagaga Girl, whatever it is, the Xyz monster. But I think it's just kind of more of the same, pure Ryzeal, just more rank 4 turbo, and I don't think it's going to be that much of an impact where you're going to want to opt to play that instead of Mitsurugi Ryzeal, but it's just something to keep in mind. All right, let's move on down to the solid decks. We're going to start off with the elephant in the room, in my opinion, which is the Lunalight deck. If you don't know what Lunalight cards do, you should know before we go into the tournament, because they have a Towers monster, which is incredibly hard to get over with just your standard deck, standard play. So it's a 3,800 attack monster that's unaffected by card effects, except for Lunalight cards, but you're not going to have any. And then also, once per turn, you can destroy all special summon monsters your opponent controls. So basically, if you set up an out or some way to get a monster that's more than 3,800 attack, which not every deck can do, but it's possible, like with Dugaris or number 80 Rhapsody and Berserk or something like that, then you're just going to get your board blown up, and it's going to be really tough to deal with. So not only that, but Lunalight will set that up alongside a Baguska, so it'll turn all of your stuff to defense, except your Link monsters, of course. And because their fusion monster, their 3,800 Towers guy, is unaffected by the Baguska, it can stay in attack and attack twice. Oh, and it can attack twice, of course, 3,800 attack, so it's just an OTK machine. It's a whole mess. So you're going to have a plan. You're going to have a plan for this Lunalight deck. Crystron, I think, is a cool option, and I think that's because of its good matchup into the non-engine that we expect to be played. I expect Bystials to be popular. We expect, Droll and the Charmies to be popular, and Crystron does pretty well into all of those non-engine cards. So that's why I think it's kind of a sleeper pick. And people are not really going to know what to do against it. People still don't really know what to do against Crystron. They still don't really know what the deck does or is going for. So I think it's kind of a sleeper matchup. Now moving on down to the Beware of Experts tier. Okay, these decks I think are very good and could easily be in the solid tier. Except I think the pool of players that are actually good enough to do well with this at the NAWCQ is kind of small. Mermail, I think, is one of the best decks. Yeah, I think it could be in the top tier. But I just don't think there are enough good Mermail players where it's going to see representation, where it's going to see results that that could prove it to be a top deck at this tournament. So if you're in the later rounds or mid rounds and you're doing well, 1 loss, 0 losses, and you're facing up against Mermail, or if this is me, I would be scared because good Mermail players are very hard to beat. I think this deck is kind of crazy. It's got plans into Fua, Perulia, Droll, like it can play through whatever. So, it's a little bit nerve-wracking to face into a Mermail matchup, especially mid-tournament, so beware of Experts on that. Similar things kind of go for Sky Striker, which just got the new support, Sky Striker A0, which can search engage, which is kind of nuts. But I'm not really sure. I haven't seen a whole lot of Sky Striker action in the prep for this tournament. So I'm not really sure how viable this deck truly is, or if it's kind of just like clinging on to the memory of what Sky Striker used to be. But I still think it's a little bit outclassed by the rest of the decks up here. But if you get a good Sky Striker player, be nervous or like be on high alert, because this deck can actually push through a lot of stuff. It can go first, it can go second very well. It's always gone second in the past, but I'm not really sure what they're going to make you do going into this tournament, if you're going to want to play a go first build or a go second build, or which one's going to be better. So, yeah, watch out for the Sky Strikers. And then also Memento always seems to find a spot in the top, tiers, or in the top cut. Always seems to find a spot. I wrote it off kind of for this format because its non-engine selection is just not that good. It likes to play board breakers, and board breakers are not that good right now. But yet somehow some player always finds a way to top with Memento in every tournament. So I'm not going to write it off. But again, it kind of goes with Mermail and Striker. You have to be a very good player to succeed with this, especially at this high-level tournament like the NAWCQ. Moving on down to Tier 4, Fringe cases. I think that maybe you could see someone do well with some of these decks. These are Orchist, Live Twin, and Blue Eyes. Like, there's usually somebody that finds success with one of these decks, but I just don't think they're good enough. All three of them kind of lose to the non-engine in the format pretty bad. And there's just better options, but, you know, it on the right day, it could be okay, you know. The reason I don't think Orcus is very good is that it just plays too many bricks. I think the ceiling is fantastic. Like, if you open Girsu, you're cooking. But if you open like Symbol Skeleton, Orcus Nightmare, Babel, Crescendo, like there's so many bricks you have to play. World Wand, you might play World Crown. Like, you're literally playing a 6-brick engine, which is just not good. It's not good enough to compete with the decks at the top where you're not really playing bricks. So, you know, all of your cards are pretty good. So that's why I don't think Orcus is that great right now. And I don't think we're going to see it succeed in a long tournament like the NAWCQ. Live Twin, kind of similar. It loses to Droll a little bit. It loses to Fuelos really badly. And Bystials are going to be popular. And for those reasons, I don't think Live Twin is going to be that great of a choice. And then Blue Eyes is always just like, the ceiling's just not there. And Bystials are going to be popular, and Droll is popular, and Fu is popular, and Perulia is popular, and it kind of just like takes too big of a hit to all of those non-engine cards. And that's why I don't think Blue Eyes is going to be at the top. But hey, I mean, it's in the top 12 decks in my opinion. Think of all the decks that are just not even on this list. So I'm not writing off Blue Eyes as an option, but I don't think it's like in the top tiers of options. So yeah, this is where I am on the tier list. There's a lot of decks that I didn't mention because I just don't think they're worth mentioning or they're not good enough. For example, we have like White Forest, which I considered putting in the Fringe cases, but still it's kind of the same as all the other decks. It loses to the current hand traps too much. There's like Gem Knights, which could be like a random deck that somebody will do well with because no one knows what it does. Fire King always finds a way to top, but yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this one, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What decks do you think might find a spot in the top tier that in Top Cut that is not on this list? Let me know which one you think I missed, and we'll catch you next time.